Hello everyone! So in case you found this video on YouTube and didn't follow the link on Tapastic, I'm the creator of the webcomic Rectify. I asked my readers for questions, and boy howdy, I got a lot of them. One of them asked about my comic making process, and I figured that showing my process would probably be the best way to go about explaining it. So here we are, first actual YouTube video. A little uncomfortable. First time, actually trying to make a video, but here we go. I'll be going over some of the other questions I got asked that I didn't answer with a drawing. So I'll be going over quite a few while you can watch me struggle over one comic page, page 159. So you'll also be getting a sneak peek of that one. So, first question. How long does it take to make a page? Well, if you didn't notice the timestamp on the video, it takes a long time. All art really does take a long time to do. This page took about 6 hours and 12 minutes for me to make, from the sketch here to the final version that I'll eventually post on Tapaz. I had to speed up the footage by 600% just to get it down to this length. And it's already so long, we're gonna be here for a while. Other pages can be quicker. It just depends on if I have an idea of the shots that I want to make, or if I have an idea for a cool panel. But for this one, I went into it with no real vision of what I wanted. So you can really see the whole process. It also depends on what backgrounds I want to include on the page. Establishing shots take a good bit longer for me to make because of all the details I want to incorporate into the backgrounds. And getting perspective right is always time-consuming. I still don't get it right sometimes, don't look too closely, but in comic making, sometimes you just gotta move on from a panel that isn't completely perfect. So question 2. How far ahead do you plan the comic? I read some advice once that I will deliver onto you. You should have an idea of how your story starts, you should have an idea of how your story ends, and you can figure out the rest along the way. Now, I think it's a pretty good idea to have a loose idea of what major plot points you want to cover, as I do with Rectify. I know generally what scenes I want to include, but I don't have them set in a solid order. It just depends if the timing feels off, if I'll cut a scene, or shift some scenes around, or even include some, make up new ones. Nothing is set too far in advance. Let me paint you a metaphor. My webcomic is a river. I know what direction it's flowing, I can see where it's going, and I can see the stepstones among the river, and I just have to consider which one to step on first. If I had plotted out every rigid detail of my webcomic before it started, I never would have ended up starting. Some people may like a more solid structure, and that's absolutely fine, but not knowing every little detail is not that big of a deal. If knowing every single thing is stopping you from starting your comic, I recommend just starting it. Get something out there. Just make the first page and see where it takes you. Question 3. Which part of the comic came to me first? Generally, I'd say the characters come along in tandem with the plot. I came up with Fleet first and then decided to make them a story, but then I started working on plot stuff, and that's when I thought of Sierra. Some plot ideas just demand characters be made for them, and some character ideas are too good to pass up, so you just find a way to fit them into existing plot points. The setting really came last. Didn't really think too much about the setting when I started. So that kind of feeds into the next question. How did you get your idea for the story? Okay, so strap in. It gets a little complicated, but we're only 5 minutes in, and there's A long way to go. So, when I was in high school, I had 2 ideas for 2 separate stories. One story was a pure fantasy story about a teen who had a magical crystal necklace that kept them safe from a deadly plague that was destroying their fantasy world. The source of the plague was this big undead dragon that they were gonna have to track down and fight and slay, to undo it or whatever. This idea slowly evolved to the point where the magic crystal wasn't a necklace, but it was inside them, their heart. They weren't gonna be human anymore. They were gonna be like, "Whoa, am I an alien? There's a crystal, what?" Yeah, it wasn't the most developed idea, but I drew some art, I threw around some ideas. It didn't go very far, though. It was just a dramatic fantasy adventure. Yeah. The other idea was a lot more dystopian, along the lines of the Hunger Games, which everyone was into at the time. That and, Divergent, and all the other ones that I never really got into that much. There's a train outside. Did the microphone pick that up? I'll find out later. Anyway, so dystopian story. Second idea. It was about a society where high schoolers had to take a test that would determine their whole worth in the future society. And they would, be shoved into one specific job for the rest of their lives. Yeah, it wasn't exactly the most, subtle? The story was about them giving a big middle finger to the society and escaping the city / entire society. Don't ask me how that worked. It might not have been the most original idea, but I wasn't in the best place at the time. I was constantly stressed and anxious about every test in school. I really felt like if I didn't do good on the SAT or the ACT or whatever test I was gonna have to do, then that would just kind of be it. My life would just be over. I felt like my self-worth was really dependent on how well I did in school, how well I did on these tests. So I wasn't in a very good place. So I wanted to make a story about how awful it was to have such pressure put on you in school. I could go on and on about how whack the school system is in America, but I'll spare y'all that. Just know that a bad test score isn't the end of the world. You are so much more than any number that a teacher just slaps on a piece of paper. Anyway, enough of that bummer. So, I have 2 stories. Imagine for me, if you will. In one hand, I have a story about a protagonist with a magic crystal life force that fights big monsters, and in the other hand, I have a story about a protagonist that takes their own future and self-worth into their own hands. Now imagine I am clapping my hands together. And now I am opening my hands, and behold, a new story, a better story, a story I named Rectify. Which, by the way, is the next question. How did I decide on the comic's name? Well, I'll let you know a little something about me. I'm real bad at naming things. I thought about what Fleet would have to do in the story, and I just kind of picked the name Rectify. If Disney can choose mildly related one-word titles for their movies, then I can choose one mildly related word for my comic. The word loosely relates to what happens in the story, so it counts. Now just don't ask me why I chose to title the chapters with words that rhyme with Rectify. I couldn't tell you. I kind of regret it. So don't worry about it. So, question 6, I think, is what we're up to. What is your inspiration? I always kind of get inspiration and motivation confused, so if I do so here, just please forgive me. I sort of touched on the inspirations behind the 2 ideas that would eventually combine forces to become Rectify, but my original inspiration for Rectify itself came from my dreams. Yeah, I have wild dreams. Yeah, don't really know why. A little weird, but it's the truth. I have a lot of reoccurring dreams where I'm just being chased. Like, I'll just be chased through these beautiful landscapes, and while I always have to keep moving, I never get caught. So this was like the original idea behind Fleet, someone that was always on the run. Fun fact for you, Fleet's original name was going to be Fleetfoot. Yeah, be glad I changed that one. I then, I was gonna focus on them just being on the run, but then I kind of reconsidered and decided that maybe actually having supporting characters and an actual plot would probably be a good idea. That's when I kind of merged some story ideas together and got what you could call Rectify. I got a lot of inspiration from where I grew up as well. I grew up nestled in the valleys between mountains and surrounded by forests and wildlife. Yeah, just very natural things. I like drawing just natural landscapes. I like drawing trees. I like drawing a good tree. So, this kind of more natural aspect kind of bleeds into some of my other comic ideas and stories as well. I've started a few of them, but never got around to finishing them or sharing them, but you know what? Stay tuned. I might one day. So that's my inspiration. My motivation really comes from one of two places. So you, my dear readers, the ones who actually like and comment and just read my comic, are a huge motivator. I hope that doesn't sound too cheesy, but it is true. Like, just knowing that other people look forward to reading my story and actually enjoy reading it is just really nice and really motivating. My other motivator is spite. Yes, spite. How much time do we have left? Oh, we got enough time. I hope you're ready for some salt, because I'm here to bring the salt. Okay, I don't want to rag on art teachers too much, but I gotta be honest. They are the big source of my motivating spite. Don't get the wrong idea. Art classes are good. They teach you valuable skills, like color theory and perspective. At least I'm guessing that's some of the things that they teach. I've only ever had like 2 high school art classes. My high school art teacher was... she did her best for, a high school class. But she was the first big motivator for me to really dive into the world of art. I remember this one specific example. I don't know what we were doing in class, but I was just doodling in my sketchbook that we were allowed to doodle in. I was doodling a character with pointy ears. And I remember she just kind of came up to me, pointed at my drawing, and told me that no one would ever take me seriously if all I ever drew were elves. Like, alright, there's a lot to unpack there in that one little sentence. But first of all, it wasn't even an elf. Like, it was a naga from a comic that I haven't started yet, but I eventually want to get into. But yeah, stay tuned on that one too. And second of all, I'm pretty sure that people take fiction seriously. Have you seen Lord of the Rings? Have you listened to The Adventure Zone? People take fantasy seriously. Like, they take fiction seriously. Fiction is incredibly important. Like, a cartoon or comic has real value to the people that make it and to the people that enjoy it. Like, it's just fun to get engrossed in a fiction story. And that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to make art to entertain myself and anyone else that happened to also read it and enjoy it. Like, I did my class assignments, and I did them to the best of my ability. I tried to take the skills and lessons that she taught in class, and I tried to incorporate them into actual art that I enjoyed making, which was usually comics or character art. But she didn't see that. Like, she told me that if I wanted a job in art, I should really consider medical illustration, even though I had never voiced an interest in medical illustration before. Like, even in biology, when they have you draw out, like, all the organelles of a cell, like, I was never good at that. I was never good at photorealism. Like, why would she think that I wanted a job in medical illustration? But she told me to do that, and when I told her that I would not really be interested in that, I would rather be interested in, like, you know, storyboarding or animation, it wasn't really what she wanted to hear. Like, she didn't think I could make it as an animator or, like, a comic maker. Because she told me, well, if you don't choose a career in, you know, medical illustration, if you don't choose a career in art, you'll never have time to draw again until you retire. And she said, well, either find a really good job in art or never draw again. So at that moment, I decided that I would always make time for art. Even if I didn't get a job in art, I would still take time out of my day, every day, to draw. And I have since then. I might have missed a few days here and there, but don't pay attention to those. So, the main thing that spurred me into starting Rectify was spite for a different teacher, a college art professor that never actually was my professor. When I applied to my good old alma mater, they told me that whatever I wanted to do, I could do it there. Cool, right? So I asked after every tour and after every speaker, I would always ask, like, even if I'm not an art major, even if I'm a biochemistry major, would I still be able to take art classes here? And they always said yes. So cool. Freshman scheduling came around, and I asked my advisor if I would be able to take Drawing 1, even if I wasn't an art major, and she said yes. So I walk over to the lady who actually enters the schedules after you're done talking to your advisor, and she turns me away and says no, that I can't take Drawing 1 because I am not an art major. So I walk back to my advisor and tell them my deep sadness. And she tells me that as long as the class isn't full and isn't projected to be full of art majors, then it should be fine for non-art majors to take the class as well. So I walk back over to the schedule lady, and again she tells me no, that it doesn't matter if there is space in the class. I'm not an art major, and therefore I cannot take the class. Like, I couldn't even take a minor to get in. Like, it was for majors only. For a Drawing 1 class. The most basic art class they offered. So, you know, during that time, from some friends that actually were art majors, I found out that Drawing 2 was actually, like, focused on graphic novels. Like, the one thing I really wanted to do. Well, I'm not totally sure what the difference between a graphic novel and a really long comic is. Like, I want to say it's just page count, but I don't know. Anyway, so that, like, double motivated me to get into Drawing 1, because, you know, to take Drawing 2, graphic novels, you had to take Drawing 1, the basics. So I waited a year, and I brought it up to my advisor again. And she advised me to contact the art professor and see if I could, you know, get his blessing to set in his art class. So I sent him just a brief and nice email asking him, you know, if it'd be possible for me to take Drawing 1, because I love art. And nothing. I get no response. So I wait like a couple of weeks with no response, and I send him basically the same exact email And again, I got no response. I told my advisor, and she tried sending at least a couple different emails. She never got a response back. She even tried calling him and leaving a message on his office phone, and she never got a call back. Like, I don't know what was up with this art professor, but he couldn't even tell me no. And that's what made me the maddest. Like, I would have accepted a, no, you can't get in because you're not an art major and this is just our big rule. But no, he couldn't even tell me no. He just ignored me and my advisor. So yeah, no art 1 for me, no art 2 graphic novels. But I decided that, you know, I don't need a class to, like, give me permission to make a graphic novel or a comic. I can just start that on my own terms. And that's what I did. Like, I would just use my time to draw what I wanted to draw instead of worrying about whatever I was missing in the class. So, okay. I'm done with the salt. We're dialing the salt back. We're putting the salt back in the case. No more salt. I just brought you this very salty story of my past to tell you that spite can be a really powerful motivator. If someone tells you you can't, just do it anyway and prove them wrong. So yeah, my motivation really comes from 2 very different places. My very sweet readers and my unbridled spite. Okay. Now it's time to get into some less personal questions and into more story-related questions. Alright, I got quite a few to get through, so it's not gonna be a lightning round, but they're gonna go a little quicker. So, let's kick it off. Is Fleet a dog or a cat person? Well, they haven't met a dog or a cat yet, but they'd probably be more of a dog person, honestly. Does Fleet like their look? I'd say they don't really have a strong opinion on their looks right now, but they will soon. I've seen, honestly, quite a few questions about who the redheaded character is on the comic's cover or on the icon that I use on Tapastic. And, well, I guess it isn't super clear, but that person is just Fleet. They're gonna get a new look starting in this chapter, and since they actually get some choice in their new look, they're definitely gonna like it more than they currently like their current look. Are there limitations to Fleet's abilities? So the short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is that they can't grow new limbs, and they can't use their morphing abilities for, like, super long periods of time. You'll see at the beginning of this upcoming chapter that using their underwater morph for a very extended period of time left them really drained. So they can't go indefinitely. But, you know, that's about all the limitations I could really think of. I mean, they only have so many options to morph into, but yeah, those are the big ones. But could Fleet use their powers outside of necessity? For example, could they give themselves rainbow hair? Yeah, they could if they wanted to. I don't know if they're ever going to do that, but yeah, they could use their powers just for fun, I suppose. Of course, you know, can't really go around flaunting your supernatural abilities in front of the general public, but we'll get more into that in upcoming chapters. If Fleet were a mythical creature, what would they be? Easy, Chimera. Next question. How do people generally deal with griefs? Okay, so we're gonna get into this in the next chapter. That's becoming a really repeated answer, but we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna cover it eventually. But griefs are considered to be potentially dangerous things. People usually leave the small ones alone, but if a larger one shows up, then they do work to get rid of them, because the larger a grief is, the more unpredictable and more dangerous they are. Griefs do have mass, so they can be physically dealt with. Like, cities have guards on call to deal with them. There are nightly patrols around most cities to, get rid of any that just kind of show up. Yeah. So, are people afraid of the virulent? Again, we'll get into that in the next chapter, but generally, yes. The public does not trust the virulent. I tried to kind of hint about that with the warden of the prison, kind of not really being on the field agent's side. No one trusts the virulent, because the virulent is very secretive. Like, people know that these weird square white cubes have, showed up, and, the virulents come forward to say, what they are. We're over here, don't worry about it. But no one really knows what they're up to. They're just a very secretive organization that everyone's kind of aware of, but very weary of. Is Rectify's world an alternate universe or an evolutionized version of our world? Neither, really. Rectify's world is just its own fantasy universe. It's not at all connected to, real life or anything. It's just a magical fantasy world with 2 moons and magic crystals that turn energy into matter and that matter back into energy. If anything, we're going to see in the next chapter that their world is a little more, not primitive, it's just less advanced than what we've seen in the virulent. We'll get into it. Okay, will we see Sierra again? Yeah, that's not much of a spoiler, I don't think. Yeah, she's going to show back up. Maybe not in this upcoming chapter, but definitely in the next one. I have plans to bring her back, and I kind of know which scenes are going to lead up to her reappearing. I mean, she's gotta be in the story again. Her and Fleet have to meet up again after all. They made a promise. Okay. Are the dog guys human? Yet no. I thought it was clear that they were subjects, just like Fleet, made by the virulent, shifty. But yeah, they are not human, never were. The subjects themselves, their bases contain human DNA. We'll get into that eventually. But, yeah, no, they're just subjects. But all of the virulent members, like the scientists and the managers and everyone, they are human. The people that work there are human. The subjects they made are not. Not completely human anyway. We'll get into that too. I just feel like, yeah, we'll get into it is it's a reoccurring answer, huh? Yeah, I didn't draw out the answers to these questions because so many of them would lead to spoiler territory. Yeah, we'll get into it later. Okay, another question about the proctors. What are the proctors' genders? I assume that when whoever asked this question, I didn't write down names because, that'd be almost like calling people out. I assume they were specifically asking about R7 and M2, the scientist that made Fleet and the manager that likes to bother her. They both identify as female. Good. What are the characters' favorite foods and drinks? I honestly wasn't expecting this one, but it got asked more than a couple of times. Fleet hasn't had, much of a variety of foods and beverages, but any food they had in prison was far better than the nutrition bricks that they got back in the capsid. I don't think they could pick out a favorite now. I mean, when everything is new to you, it's really hard to choose your favorite of the new things. Sierra's, though, is easy. Her favorite food is a fried dough that I am naming Sally Cakes. Yeah, my first in-universe food, Sally Cakes. They're based on a fried dough that my grandmother makes. In real life, my family calls them Johnny Cakes, but I googled that, and what we call Johnny Cakes is apparently not actually called Johnny Cakes. They don't really have a name, as it turns out. And Johnny Cakes was already taken, so I'm calling them Sally Cakes. Her favorite drink is lemonade. That's it. Does Fleet miss their friends back at the capsid? I'm not sure that the other subjects back at the capsid could be called their friends. Since, the subjects got little to no downtime to actually speak to each other or actually, develop their own interests and personalities and bonds that I think friendship needs to be called friendship. I mean, I think a part of Fleet does miss, 740, 742, and 743. Even though they may not have been close and may not have been quite friends, I feel like they would all still have a certain connection because, when you grow up standing next to the same people and sitting next to the same people, you're gonna have some sort of familiarity and, connection with them. Not a deep one, but something. Okay, what are the characters' sexualities? Haven't spent a whole lot of time thinking about this one, but I got answers. Fleet is pan, though they don't really have enough outside experience to be in any relationships at the moment. They got a lot going on right now. Down the road in later chapters, though, I think that maybe they're gonna realize that they've caught feelings for someone eventually. Sierra is Jimmy. She isn't generally interested until, whoops, she caught feelings for a friend. R7 is a lesbian, but she's married to her job of science. M2 is bi, though she's married to being a bitch. Now for the characters in the video. I've lost track of how far we are into the video. Have I finished the sketches yet? I don't know. But Nick, in this video, she's bi, and Ivan, the other character introduced, he's still figuring things out, and honestly, he isn't too worried about figuring them out yet. Okay, why do the scientists play God? Why not play God? Aren't you tired of being nice? Don't you just want to play God? Every employee has a different reason for working with the Virulent. The Virulent has the most advanced technology in Rectify's world, and they pay decently. So, we'll get into the specific reasons that, R7 decided to work there and stay there, and we might get into M2s. Yeah, everybody has their own reasons. What is Sierra most inspired by for her art? Well, I'd say money, but that's kind of cheap and she knows it. Sierra struggles between painting what she thinks will sell well and what she actually enjoys painting. Her favorite works are her more abstract ones based on her feelings. Eventually, I do want to get into her art and actually try and paint the paintings that Sierra makes. Like, it's hard to be an artist depicting other artists, because, well, I don't know how it is for some people, but I only have one style that I work with, so trying to come up with a completely new one for fictional artists that I've made is just a little challenging. But I do want to try it, so maybe I can get into that one day. Is Fleet's leg okay? Well, that's a spoiler, I don't know, but we'll find out soon. Will Fleet's name and appearance change throughout the story? No, their name will remain Fleet throughout all of the story, but right now I only really plan for them to change up their look this one big time. I don't think it's any surprise that it's them, dyeing their hair red. Yeah, not much of a spoiler there, but that's the only real big appearance change I have planned, but who knows? Maybe down the line I'll decide to switch it up and have them change up their hair. We'll see how I feel. What does Fleet like to do for fun? Well, they haven't exactly gotten a lot of opportunities to just have fun yet, but I'd say their favorites so far are reading and drawing. The one of few things they got to actually enjoy during their time in prison. Are the two deities worshipped together, or do they have different rituals? So this is referring to my other supplemental page that talks about one of the main religions in the world of Rectify. And there are two main goddesses. The two of them are worshipped together for the most part, though people can and do pray for them individually. Like, if they're sick, they pray to Matthias, since she represents the physical body, and if they were, going through a tough time, then they would pray to Ingenie because she represents non-physical emotions and, feelings. So even though, while they are, kind of two halves of the same cosmic whole, like they complete each other, they are balanced, I imagine that people still do, pray to the one they need the most. Could we get a world map? And how is everything positioned in the world? I've only really made one map before, and it wasn't the best. It's definitely something I could try and work on, just keep up a big world map of the world. Yeah, I'll try it. The only thing I'm kind of hesitant about is that coming up with the names for cities and towns is something I struggle with so much, and it'll probably be the hardest part of actually putting together a world map. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Is Fleet non-binary? Yes. I've announced it a few different times, but yes, Fleet is non-binary. They don't identify as either male or female, and they go by they/them pronouns. In the comic itself, their gender identity hasn't been discussed yet, but they are going to have a scene that I've planned out in this upcoming chapter that actually dives into that explicitly in the comic. That kind of feeds into another question that I saw. What inspired you to have a non-binary protagonist? Alright, so it's always been my belief that representation matters in fiction. In all fiction. It does. There are all kinds of people in the world, so there should be all kinds of characters in any given story. It's not my place to tell stories that don't belong to me, but I can and I should tell, other stories that include those different than me. Fleet is non-binary just because they are. They don't really need a reason to be non-binary. No one does. Non-binary people just exist, and I randomly chose to have them be non-binary. Originally, like the first draft of Fleet, they were going to be a boy. But I never had made a non-binary OC before, and I just kind of decided early on, why not make a non-binary OC? Like, no real big reason. I just decided. And that's kind of how I make all of my characters. I just kind of have an idea for a personality or a character, and then I slap some traits on them, I slap some colors on them, and I call them good. Okay, that about wraps up all of the questions that I saw on the post where I actually asked for questions. I couldn't answer all of them, either because they would have been too spoilery, or they were just questions that would require like a doodle or a drawing. But I hope that I have answered most of your questions. Hopefully I haven't created even more questions. But yeah, that's about all I had scripted out for the video. How far are we into it now? Shoot. Okay, so like 20 more minutes. Oof. If you've managed to listen through all of this and make it this far through the video, I applaud you. But yeah, that's kind of all the questions I had. I guess I could actually talk about my actual art process. I've kind of left it up to the video to do the explaining for me. So if you've watched, and I assume you have, I don't actually start with thumbnail drawings. I know that thumbnailing can be very useful, and I know a lot of artists thumbnail, and I have tried doing it before, like doing a thumbnail page before I actually start the sketch, but I've just found that for Rectify, at least, it's easier for me to just sketch out any ideas that I have, and if they work on the page, I keep them, and if they don't or I can't fit them together, then I'll just, reimagine the scene, reimagine the shot, and sketch something else. My sketch is really my warm-up, so I'll just, start my sketch on the page, that'll be my warm-up, and then I'll go straight into the coloring. Because with no lines, you kind of skip the whole lining step in comic making. But yeah, I come up with the dialogue alongside the sketch, and I try to place in where I'm going to place the speech bubbles to flow the best with the page, and also, it's good to draw out and plan where you're going to put your speech bubble, so you don't have to worry about drawing a background behind it. I cannot tell you how many times I've made a background and then I cursed myself for having to put word bubbles and speech bubbles over it, because I didn't plan out where I was going to put them beforehand, so I spent a lot of time making everything pretty when I know I'm gonna have to go cover some of it up. I used to always hate that in comics, where like the speech bubble would clip the person talking, or it would just block out too much of the pretty backgrounds, but that's just something comics have. Unless you do a wordless comic, but anyway, so I do all the dialogue and all the sketching as my warm-up, start that, and then I go straight into the colors. I typically start with any full-bodied characters. I usually do the subjects first, and then I think I did this for this comic page. Like, I started with the full body of Mick and Ivan, and then I went in and did all the other subjects, and then last I'll go in and do the backgrounds. You might have noticed some, like, jumping around maybe in the video. I didn't want to give too many sneak peeks of, you know, up-and-coming pages, but yeah, don't go back and pause the video with those flashed up. Those are sneak peeks. Don't look at them. They're leaks. But the way I do all my colors, like, I just color grab from past pages. Some people might be able to eyeball their colors and match them perfectly, but I just color grab for, you know, 1, for convenience, and 2, so, you know, the pages actually look coherent. So I tried to pause the video before I would bring up another page to color grab from and then start the recording again, but there were a few instances when I was working on the backgrounds where just a little bit of the video is missing, where I had to reference another page. Oh boy, we still have about 14 minutes to go. Let's see, what else can I talk about? For skin tones, I usually choose 3 colors, you know, the base and then 2 shaders. For hair, I usually try to follow the same rule. I usually try to keep every, like, object in my comic to 3 colors. How do I explain this well? I really should have scripted this part of the video out instead of just talked at the computer, but here we are. I'm short on time. I need to get working on other comic pages. Yeah, like, with clothing, I'll try to pick 3 colors. Or even 2 for the most part, if it's just, like, you know, jeans or just a simple t-shirt. 2 or 3 colors. I don't want to make everything so complicated, because the minute I start trying to add shading to my lineless forms, everything kind of gets sort of muddled. Drawing lineless is a challenge sometimes, especially in this scene that we're going to start chapter 3 with. Because Mick and Ivan, the 2 characters on this page, are pretty pale, and their house has really pale walls. So if you look closely, in some of the images I did have to go back in and add, like, just a super thin dark outline around them so you could actually, you know, tell their arms apart from the plaster on the wall. And I was sometimes getting backgrounds to stand out against subjects is difficult, just depending on what colors you're working with. I do have, you know, some ability to, like, shift the values around to help things stand out, but when I want everything to stay like one uniform color throughout shots, it's harder then. Which is why I kind of prefer outdoor scenes or scenes that occur in nature as, you know, compared to indoor scenes or scenes in like a cityscape where just all the buildings are kind of one color. But lineless, I just like the look of it. I don't really know why I started making a comic lineless, except I just didn't feel like making lines. So I didn't. But I've been working on another comic project whenever I just need a short break from working on Rectify, where I have been playing around with adding in some lines while keeping some of it lineless. Eventually you'll see what I'm talking about because I want to eventually post it on Tapastic and somehow try and keep 2 series going at once, but we'll see how that goes. Rectify is always going to be my main priority. I'll work on other comics and other art, you know, between pages or whenever I manage to get ahead in the page buffer, but right now my focus really has to be on Rectify and getting this chapter going. I wanted to take the short break between chapters because it is difficult to go between chapters for me. Just like trying to make sure that the new material in the new chapter still has, you know, the same feel that the earlier ones did. Like, I want the next chapter to be just as good as the last one. And I was a little worried about delivering on that. You know, introducing new characters, a new type of setting. It's all a little scary, and I hope you guys like it. I mean, if you liked it so far, then you're probably gonna like where it goes. Or at least I hope you do. Oh boy, how much longer do we have left in this video? About 9 minutes. Okay, I can make it 9 more minutes. If you've made it this far, you can make it 9 more minutes. I wanted to try and put some just royalty-free music here at the end to fill in the part of the video that I couldn't fill with the sound of my beautiful voice. But I don't really quite know how to do that. It took me long enough just to figure out how to edit this video. Like, it's been a journey. But, you know, if any of you are interested in, I don't know, any other videos from me? What do YouTube artists get into these days? What are the speed paints? I guess I could do a speed paint. Maybe not a speed paint of a comic page, considering it takes 6 hours and the video is sped up so much that I'm afraid it's just gonna be jittering all over the place. But I could try that. I could try art memes. There's some art memes that I could try and do, I suppose. I thought about, okay, so a while back I did try streaming. I never advertised it here on Tapas because, you know, Tapas is for my comic first and foremost. But I tried streaming and I thought about trying to do like make an OC challenges. I thought that might be fun. I could try to make YouTube videos about that. What else? I would try to make tutorials, but I honestly believe that I am not... I don't want to put myself down, but I don't think I'm that skilled enough to make tutorials. I haven't done a bunch of art studies. I need to do art studies. I know they're good for you as an artist. I mean, I use references from, you know, for poses and stuff, but no real art studies. But yeah, I think maybe some art memes might be fun videos. I don't know what I talk about during them, but maybe I could try to find out how to put royalty-free music on a video. Or you can mute the video and find your own other copyrighted music to play while you watch. Yeah. I mean, if anyone would be interested in art tutorials, that's something I could attempt to do. I draw a pretty good tree. Could I interest you in a few trees? Arguably my trees are pretty good. I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna go on a limb and say my trees are pretty good. I should cut the video right then. I should make this the last clip. But yeah. If you enjoyed this video, you could like it. Or leave a comment. You could even subscribe if you wanted to. There might be more videos in the future. I can't make any promises right now, but you know, maybe one day. I don't think I'll be making another whole comic page process video anytime soon. But, you know, maybe just a character drawing here or there. Who knows? The options are unlimited. Unlimited potential for this YouTube channel. It's only got 2 videos. That's right, surprise. I have one other video on this channel. It's like a 17-second animation I made like a year ago. But it still holds up for my first animation, I think. It's also got some grade A voice acting, if I do have to say so myself. And I did say so myself. How much longer do I have to talk? I feel like I'm just stalling. I'm just stalling for time. Just trying to fill in the rest of the video. Just trying to put more tissue paper in the box that represents my video. All the fragile, breakable goods are on one side of the box, and here I am on the other side just putting in as much tissue paper as it'll hold. Only like 4 more minutes. What else can I talk about in my art? I should have scripted something. I'm gonna have the characters get new clothes and wear new clothes every time a day passes. Yeah, I might hate myself for that later, but it was inspired because, you know, I just liked shows that had their characters wear different outfits from time to time. It makes them feel more real. Also, I get tired of drawing the same outfit over and over and over. In some ways, it's a blessing, like when I had, you know, all of Chapter 2, where they were forced to wear uniforms, or all of Chapter 1, where they're forced to wear uniforms. Here in Chapter 3, I'm mixing it up. I'm gonna try and make fashion choices for my characters. I should not have the authority to make any call on fashion, but this is my story, these are my characters, and I need to try and dress them good. Oh, that's a fun art meme I could draw. Maybe like the outfit meme I saw on Twitter, where people send you like an outfit and then you have to draw the OC in it. That would be fun. Okay, yeah, that would be fun. Oof, we're almost there. We're almost there, I think. This clip is about 6.5 minutes long. I got that much left. Yeah, we're just stalling. Okay, only about 3 more minutes before I can call this first YouTube video done and done. I mean, then I have to figure out how to, like, actually, you know, upload it to YouTube and do all the, like, processing stuff. I don't know. I'll get to it when I get to it. But it's been kind of fun to try and put this together. And I was actually surprised, like pleasantly surprised, about how many questions I did get asked when I asked for questions. Like, it still baffles me to think that I have so many readers who genuinely care about my comic and genuinely like it. When I started Rectify back in college, I never thought that I'd actually, you know, I didn't know how many pages I was actually going to get to. I didn't know how long I would actually be able to keep it going. But I'm very happy looking back that I pushed myself to actually keep working on a project and actually get it to the point where it is now. Oof, okay, turning back the sappiness. So, here in the last few minutes that I have, I just want to thank you all again for reading, and thank you for watching this video if you made it all the way through. If you did like it, leave a like. If you want to comment. I'll appreciate anything. And hey, if you want to see more videos, tell me and maybe I'll make more videos. Who knows? So, that's about it. Go have a good day.